Hey, how's it going? Gareth James here for MTT Poker School.com, and this is part 2 of my $22 mini Sunday Million chop review. We left it here with the ace 10 of clubs in the last part. I have switched the stack sizes just to read big blinds rather than the actual stack sizes. I think this is going to be just a little bit easier to see and to understand and work things out. So we'll just carry on through. So there are antes out there now. As I said in the last part, I debated whether or not to show you every single hand, but in the end I decided that I would. D-Diggler opens here, and we decide to let the ace-7 suited go. If he had folded, I think I'd probably open here, the ace-7 suited, but he opens, so we don't open. Letting the 8-5 suited go there. Now we have 9-8 offsuit in the big blind, and here we see a raise from Dizzle G, who only has 24 big blinds. And it's a common mistake that I see here. A lot of people want to defend the big blind now, and they'll do it really wide. Now 9-8 offsuit is not a bad hand to defend the big blind with. The key thing to think about here though is that we're actually facing a 3 big blind raise rather than like a 2.0 or 2.2, 2.5 x raise. So obviously the smaller the raise size here, the better the flat's going to be, because we're just getting a ridiculously good price. But here versus the 3x, we have 27% equity. We need 27% equity. And the thing is that 9-8 offsuit versus this guy's range is probably going to have 27% equity, but the chance of being able to realize that equity is not going to be anywhere near 27%. So I don't know what I chose to do here. I did choose to fold. I think 9-8 suited I think would be a mandatory call. I think a 3x versus a late position open again would be a call, but here I just think that the range is going to be tight enough that where we're not going to be getting the right odds post flop. If you just give me 1 second, I'm going to throw up Equilab and just have a quick look at this spot. Okay, so here is Equilab, and this is the range that I've given the opener. It's fairly tight. I mean, maybe we can even take out some of these hands. He's raising off a shorter stack, so he might not be opening all of these hands, but I think this is a reasonable representation. And then we evaluate our range. 9-8 offsuit has 33% equity, so you might be looking at this and going, okay, well, we only need 27%. Therefore, why don't we call in this spot? Well, as I've just explained, we're going to have to realize our equity a lot of the time in this situation. So as you can see, all we need to do is look at our pot odds, divide them by our equity, and then we get to see how often we need to realize our equity. So the pot odds is 27 divided by 33.08. So we need to realize our equity in this spot 81, almost 82% of the time. And that's going to be really tough with a hand like 8-7 off. Oh, sorry, 9-8 off. And now let's just say we had 9-8 suited instead. Our equity is that much greater, and we have a better chance at realizing our equity because we flop, not only do we flop straight draws, but we also flop flush draws. And, sometimes we're going to flop a pair and be able to call one street and improve to trips or 2 pair. So 9-8 suited is just going to be a much better flat in this spot. But let's just have a quick look. If we do 27 now divided by 36.54, we still have to realize our equity almost 74% of the time here. So we're not actually loving it in this spot. But I think given that he's got a relatively short stack, and times when we do hit a draw, we're going to be able to play aggressively and realize our equity by getting all in a lot of spots. And therefore, seeing the turn and the river for sure. If we get all in, then I think it's I think 9-8 suited is a comfortable call in this spot. If you wanted to just think, let's just bring the calculator back on. If you wanted to sort of reverse engineer this, you could do 27 divided by 3 times by 5, and then you're looking for hands that have about 45% equity. So you could keep going through this until you got to that point. And let's see if we actually do get a suited connect. Okay, so King Queen suited is going to be fine. Queen Jack suited is going to fall outside. But with those suited connectors, I think they're going to have a better chance at realizing their equity. So I think that would be fine. But if you want to put all of these hands in, hands that are going to be comfortable calls in this situation, you can see all of these absolutely fine calls. We'll just have another quick look. Ace 10 off. Okay, so that's just an idea of how to work it out. how to work out what hands will be profitable calls in this situation. So it always needs to be a function of the pot odds and your opponent's range, and then how often you think you're going to be able to realize equity post flop. So I folded and move on to the next one. So we limp here with a 9-6 off, which I think is quite good. We're getting 4.8 to 1. He does have a short stack, so can shove on us fairly liberally, but he's not going to shove all the time, and we're going to see some flops a decent amount of the time. And if we do get shoved on, we've only risked half a big blind, so it's not the end of the world. In this spot, I think we're going to have a lot more ace-x hands than he is. I think a lot of his ace-x hands is going to raise or shove. I think it's very unlikely he has pocket eights, pocket queens, or ace queen, or ace eight. So we definitely have an advantage on this board. So I think we can go ahead and bet. I don't really like the idea of checking because we're just going to be checking to give up. So I decide to lead pretty small, and he calls. So I would imagine now his range is going to look something like flush draws, maybe some straight draws, like if he had 9-10, Jack 10. Jack 10 has a double gutter. And he might have some spades. He might have an 8. He might have a queen. So queen's a pretty bad card. I don't think he folds a queen now. I don't think he folds an 8. We do have a 9 in our hand, which blocks Jack 9 and 10-9. So I imagine I'll just give up here. We get to the river, and everything that I think he had on the flop just completes. So the flush gets there. I think he probably bets his trips on the turn. So we'd really now be trying to target an 8, try and get an 8 to fold in this spot. I think we're definitely going to be over bluffing without a spade in our hand. If we had a 9 of spades or the 6 of spades in our hand, this makes it less likely that our opponent has a flush, and it'd be a reasonable spot to go ahead and bluff and try and get an 8 to fold. But here I think we should just give up. We do check, and he does have an 8. So I think this is fine. I think the way we played it is fine. It's disappointing when he shows down an 8, but for the reasons I said, I just don't think we can just bluff all the time in this spot. I mean, it is pretty difficult though for him to have a strong hand here. I mean, he can definitely have a flush. He definitely calls the flop and then checks back the turn, and then gets the flush, hits flush on the river, which is why it's important for us to have a spade in our hand. So then it's more likely that he has an 8 rather than spades. Here we are with ace 4. We decide to open and we take it down. Pretty nice spot for us. I mean, there's 2 short stacks in the blinds and we have an ace blocker. And I mean, we could actually go ahead and raise a little bit bigger, force them to shove or fold. But I think I felt in game that these 2 players were tight enough where I could get away with making a small raise and then just going from there. Now we have ace jack. And it's a really weird spot. I think I remember this in game. This guy either has the nuts or a raise fold. Like it's so polarized. I think this open. So I wouldn't be surprised to actually see myself fold in this situation. If he just goes ahead and shoves, I think that I go ahead and call or reshove. But in this situation, it's just really, really weird. I mean, looking back on it now, it wouldn't be terrible to go ahead and call here. I mean, we're going to be in position. Some other players might come into the pot, and we have a reasonable holding for playing. If say the big blind wants to come in with a fairly wide range. But I think if we 3-bet and we get it in against this player, he's just going to have us crushed all the time. So I did end up folding. It kind of feels a little bit nitty. Ace queen, we're just going to get it in. We're just going to 3-bet and get it in against this player. Ace 10, I'm not too sure about. So ace jack really is threshold hand. I think I'd probably get ace jack suited in as well in this spot. But if this guy is just nutted, completely nutted in this spot, then folding here, it can't be bad. And if it's a mistake, well, we might find out now. Actually, I think I remember this hand. I think it was a pretty big mistake after we see what this guy actually ends up having. So he ends up having queen 10. So my read was, way off about him having a polarized range. I think he should just go ahead and shove in this spot. And we end up folding the best hand out of the 2 hands that we see here. But I think the key thing to take from this is that if you don't know anything about your opponent and you see them make a min raise off a short stack, you have to think that sometimes they're going to have a pretty big hand. Now, we do block aces, we do block jacks in this spot, and I think jacks are probably just going to go ahead and shove anyway from his point of view. But we were not too sure about that. And yes, we potentially missed out on 9 big blinds in this scenario, but he could have very easily had a much stronger hand. So I'm not going to beat myself up too much about it, but definitely make a note on this player that he's 2xing off 11 big blinds with a hand that he should just be going ahead and shoving. Jack 7 suited here. I think we could definitely open. We do have the cutoff who can shove and the button who can shove, but I wouldn't hate an open here, but folding's fine as well. Ace 4 off is too loose to be opening. 9-2, we're just going to let it go. King 5 suited, likewise. I think I'd open King 9 suited here, but King 5 suited is just too weak. King 3 off is going to be a fold. And then we get pocket kings. So let's see what happens here. So we see a limp, and I think we just want to raise here. Probably 3 to 3.2, maybe go as big as 3.5. We make it 3, I think that's fine, and he just folds. Now we have 9-3, we're just going to be folding. 6-2, we're going to be folding. Ace Queen suited, definitely opening that. And we see a shove. And when we open a hand as strong as Ace Queen suited from the cutoff, and we see a less than 20 big blind shove from the button or from any of the positions behind us, the small blind as well, then we should feel very, very confident about getting Ace Queen suited in this spot. If we wanted to, we could just have a quick look and put in Ace Queen suited. So we need 41% equity to break even on a call here. So you could start really, really tight. And you can see that even against a 5% range, really tight range, we're getting the right price to go ahead and call here. I think, though, that there's potential. If we just go in here, we think actually he could, shove quite a few of these hands, I reckon. Maybe he even goes as wide as something like this. And then we evaluate that, and we just see that Ace Queen suited absolutely crushing in this spot. So, I mean, the only reason we would ever fold is if we really felt that his range was going to be like this. And the way to work this out, I mean, if you know that this player is a regular, he's definitely going to be shoving wider than this. So therefore, calling is going to be very, very profitable. If it's an unknown player, I think I would still call, because more and more players are starting to understand that you should be shoving, fairly wide, fairly liberally from these positions. And cutoff versus button is, one of those sort of aggressive dynamics that presents itself. So I definitely wouldn't be, folding here in this spot. He ends up having King Queen off, and we take down a pretty nice pot up to 73 bigs. We have pocket tens. We see an all-in shove, and we have a decision to make about whether we should just call, or we could 3-bet small. So we could essentially just click it so that we take it up to about 9.14 big blinds. Or we could just go ahead and shove. I think the best way to think about these spots is, if you ever want to have some calls in here that you end up folding versus a jam behind, then just always go ahead and call. If you're there's not a range of hands that you want to split there. So, for example, you might call here with pocket sixes, but then if the big blind shoves, you don't really want to call in that spot. So, you would call and then fold if the big blind jammed. But similarly, you have aces in this spot. You maybe don't want to just go ahead and shove here. So you flat, and then when the big blind shoves, it's a very, very easy call. So I think in this situation, I think calling is absolutely fine. I think it's unlikely that big blind's going to call for an extra 4 big blinds. I think if this was like a 3 big blind shove, then I'd like to see a small 3-bet. I think 5 big blinds is just enough, big enough. Having said all of that, we do click it and just go a little bit bigger. Wow. So that escalated quickly. So now we have another calculation to make. I think 10 is just going to be too strong in this spot. But I think it's a good spot to just analyze in Hold'em resources. So anytime where you have maybe more than one calculation to try and work out, I think you can move away from Ecolab and look at HRC. So that's what we're going to do now. I'll pause the video, but it won't feel like that it's paused because it's going to come straight up. Okay, so here's Hold'em Resource Calculator. We are doing an advanced hand here. So you can just paste the hand through here. And then what we've done is we've selected the first raise is an all-in, and then my 3-bet was to 9.13 big blinds, and then the 4-bet was all in, and then we click next, and what it was middle position shoving. Then we can basically just click finish, but I've already done it here. So what we've got is the original player shoving this range of hands, and then apparently according to the software we should be 3-betting with this range of hands, and you see 10s definitely in there, definitely profitable. And then versus that, RNG admin should be going ahead and shoving 7s plus an ace queen. 7's not very profitable in this situation. You can see that it's not even done 100% of the time. So I might just take that out. I'm not sure if he's going to be doing it with 8s, and I'm not sure if he'll do it with ace queen off. So I'm just going to edit that range and then run the calculation again and see what sort of effect that has on our calling range. Because you can see at the moment it's supposed to be 6s plus, ace 9 suited, ace queen off, king jack suited. And now we can see it's a little bit wider on the pairs front, but you can now see that queen jack 10, jack 10, not going to be profitable anymore. But you can see 10s definitely wants to be a call. It's worth plus 5.99 big blind. So very, very profitable in this situation to get 10s in. You know, there's such a huge overlay in the pot with this extra 5 big blinds, and then you've got the big blind and the antes as well that we should never be folding. So fingers crossed I don't make the fold. Okay, good. We do call, and we hold against ace queen, and we lose to 8-4. So we had a few chips, yeah, because this guy shoved 5 bigs. So we picked up the big pot against RNG admin, which is nice, and we lose this one against Danny Win. Okay, so in the very next hand we pick up aces. So we have been fairly active, and I mean, I guess, you know, one of the secrets to winning tournaments is getting this sort of action when you have aces. So, you know, obviously we're in dream world right now. We raised, I think it was the 3rd hand in a row that we've raised, and now this guy's just shoving 35 bigs, and you know, we're happy to call it off. Here's pocket 5s. I don't think that's a great shove from his on his part, but we're happy to accept the donation, and we move on to the next hand. Folding the 7-6, folding jack 5, and now we get ace queen off in the big blind. Now we've already seen Diggler limp and fold before. I don't think that means that we should check back here. I think we should still raise, and you know, ace queen off definitely good enough to raise and call when he shoves. So I just go to 3 big blinds, maybe a little bit more, and that's absolutely fine. He ends up folding, and we go on to the next hand. So we have a decision here. We see a limp, and you know, we're getting an incredible price, 6.8 to 1 with a suited ace. You know, sometimes we win a limp and the big blind's going to shove, but it's not going to happen that often. So I just decide to complete, and we get a pretty nice flop. So I think on the whole, I'm generally going to be checking here. I think Sonic could have some strong hands that he's decided to limp, and I would like to put money into this pot as a check raise, because any club and any 5 is going to improve my hand significantly. But it checks around, and now we have a decision to make on the turn. I think it's very unlikely that anybody has a king here. So we could definitely lead. I think it'd be a nice spot as well, though, to trap in some money where if somebody has a different kind of draw from ours. So maybe if they have the 6-5, especially the big blind, if they have a worse flush draw. So I think, you know, I think there are probably 2 ways to play this. We could just lead now, or we could just check call. I don't know what I chose to do. Okay, so I do decide to lead, pretty small sizing. I mean, the beauty of this sizing is that it doesn't need to work very often. So if I just show you this, 1.37. So we do our bet size divided by the total size of the pot now, which is 5.26. So our bet only needs to work 26% of the time. And as long as nobody has trips or better in this spot, then, you know, we're going to hit 9. There are 9 clubs we can hit and 3 more 5s that we can hit. So that's 12 out. So we actually hit on the river about 24% of the time, and this bet only needs to work 26% of the time. So we're actually, you know, this bet overall only needs to work 2% of the time if these players continue versus this bet by calling. So it's a pretty nice situation. Let's have a quick look at this. So there are 12 cards remaining out of 46. So actually it's closer to 26. So I was doing the rule of 2 and 4 here. So with 1 card to come, you know, you multiply the number of outs by 2 and it gives you roughly the right answer, but we can be more precise by saying we have 12 outs divided by the 46 cards that we haven't seen yet. So 26%. So basically this is a neutral EV play. But basically this just doesn't need to work at all. Which is a pretty amazing thing. But this needs to work 0% of the time because we actually get there this amount of the time. So we do see a call, and we get there on the river. This guy only has 14 big blinds now. It's a really interesting spot. I think he could definitely have some kings, which he's never going to fold if we choose to shove. He's also never going to fold if he has a flush. So I think it's quite a nice spot to just go ahead and shove. If you check here, you know, he's going to check back some 4x. I mean, those are hands that you're just not going to get value from anyway. You could bet small and he just calls with his kings, you know, worried about the flush. Maybe he doesn't raise the flush on the river, you know, things like that. Of course, there's the chance that we've run into a boat here. But I think the overall play is just to go ahead and shove and target, you know, the stronger hands in his range. If a 4 and a 3 is just going to fold anyway, and a 6-5 obviously folds, then I think shoving to maximize value against trips and better is good. Obviously, we run into a boat sometimes, but that's fine. So I shove, and he folds. So it didn't work out this time, but I think the overall thought process is fine. We have Queen 8. We're going to fold. Queen 5 suited, you know, potentially we could open that if it came to us, but this guy shoves for 16 big blinds. We're going to fold 5-3 off. We're going to fold Jack 5 suited. Folding Jack 7 suited. 5-4 off. So lots of folding, which is fine. Definitely folding 7-2. We get Ace 9 off in the big blind. We see a limp. And I think if this guy's doing a lot of limping, then shoving here is definitely going to be profitable. But I quite like the idea of going post-flop against this player who has a fairly wide range, and we have a reasonably strong hand to just check back. So that's what I chose to do. He bets half pot, and our equity here is probably, you know, we probably have enough equity to call here. We only need 25%, but our hand's not very good at improving. You know, if we had the Ace of Hearts in our hand, for example, then we could definitely continue because we can continue on lots of different turn cards. But here it's gonna be tough to improve. So I think we should fold. I don't know what I did in game. Okay, yeah, we do fold, and I think that's fine. I mean, if you think about all of the hands that we check back on the big blind, we do have some really strong hands like Jack 2, 5-2, Jack 5. Maybe pocket 2s, pocket 5s if we didn't shove pre-flop, although, you know, they would be fine to shove. We're going to have some Jack X. We're going to have some flush draws here. We're going to have some straight draws like 4-3, Ace-3, Ace-4, 6-4. All of those sorts of hands are going to be better calls in this spot because they have a better chance of improving versus the sort of value hands that Sonic DB can have. And I think Ace-9 off's just a comfortable fold. So it's always worth thinking about, you know, all the other hands that you could possibly have in that situation and see where Ace-9 off is. And if it's fairly low down in your range, I think you can just pitch it. Here we have Ace-2 suited. I think we could raise here or we could just limp, getting a nice price. We can call a raise. So if we limp and he raises, we can call, or we could choose to turn it into a bluff. Here we decided to raise. You know, there's maybe a few reasons why we're doing this. If this player is fairly tight, then just stealing the blinds and antes at this point is great. This bet doesn't even need to work that often. So we're adding 2.25 big blinds to the pot, and the pot is now 4.65 bigs. So 2.25 divided by 4.65. We need this to work 48% of the time, which means on the flip side, he needs to be defending 51, 52% of hands. And if you, if you're looking at some players, then you see they're really, really tight. Then, are they really going to be defending with these hands? Yes, they're going to be defending with the stronger parts of this range. But some people will just look down at a Jack 4 suited or a King 4 off and mistakenly go ahead and fold it, despite getting a great price. So, if you have the stat on your HUD that's folds big blind versus small blind steal, and that number is, 60% or higher, then making this play is very profitable. So he folds and we take it down. Queen 8 offsuit again. I decide to fold here. Sonic DB, showing that perhaps he's a weaker player. So we want a bit of a stronger hand and range to continue on the button there. I think we could actually just limp behind and get to play him in position. That wouldn't be, terrible. Here we see a raise from a 17 big blind stack. I'm just going to go ahead and pitch this. I think we can call with King 10 suited, but we fold King 10 off. Folding the Queen 2 off, folding 3-2 off, Queen 8 off, Jack 5 off, and we're folding the King 9 off as well. And the next time we're going to be in the big blind with the 8-5. And this time we see Sonic DB decide to raise, which is, a little bit uncharacteristic of him. We're getting a really nice price with two cards that are kind of close together. Obviously, it's going to be much better to flat here with 8-5 suited. It's going to be much better to flat here with 8-7 off or even 8-6 off. So 8-5 off is kind of close. I wouldn't hate a fold given that we've seen him limp a lot of hands. So if his raising range is probably going to be a little bit stronger than most people's in this spot. So I wouldn't hate a fold, but I decided to call in this spot, and now we're just going to give up. And Jack 2 off, we're going to let it go. Pocket 2s now. I decide to make it 3x in this spot, and the reason for that is the fact that the big blind only has 5.5 big blinds behind. So I'm happy to get it in against the big blind, but I also don't want him to flat and realize part of his equity on the flop. So if we make it bigger pre-flop, it really forces him to go ahead and shove or fold. He's not really incentivized to flat too many hands, given that 2 big blinds out of 5.5 is quite a lot. We do open ourselves up sometimes when the small blind is able to 3-bet or indeed flat. It's a bit of a weird situation. And now they just decide to go and lead a board that is just fantastic for our range and not so much for their range. It's a really bizarre spot. 2 is obviously very, very weak. I mean, we could raise as a bluff, but I think we should just pitch this hand. I mean, if you think about, again, we think of all of the hands that we could have here. We're going to have all of the ace-x hands. We're going to have flush draws. We're going to have straight draws. We're going to have some king-x. Hands like king-x of hearts that can improve significantly. Hands that might be second pair at the moment, but can improve to be straights. Would be absolutely fine calls here. I think 2s is just very, very weak here, and we should just pitch it. Just to actually go back to the flop here, I think we obviously have all the strong hands as well, like pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket nines, ace 9, ace king, king 9, offsuit and suited. So we just have a ton of really, really strong hands. It's a really weird lead from the small blind, but I don't think we need to just get into a guessing game with the small blind here. We're going to have enough hands to be able to defend here, and we should just let the twos go. With King Jack off, I'd like to see myself open here. Talked about this a bit in the first part, where when everyone's deep stacked, I think you can get away with folding King Jack off here, but now everyone's a little bit shorter, so we've got 2 great blockers to jamming ranges, and also if we raise and anybody flats, we can feel more comfortable getting it in with our top pair type hands. Maybe not so much against the guy next to us with 40 bigs, but I think against anybody else we can feel pretty confident. So we raise, and then I win calls, and we pick up a gut shot. And it's just a spot again where we have all the really strong hands. Maybe we don't have pocket threes, but we have ace 3, ace 10, aces, 10s, ace king, ace queen, ace jack. With the king and the jack, we do block a lot of his continuing range here. So, king, queen, queen, jack, it's tough for him to have. I don't think he's going to have a hand as strong as ace king, but he could have ace jack, so we block that as well. And also we block king 10 and jack 10. So his 10x hands that he defends on this board are going to be fairly weak by the turn. So I like to see myself bet fairly small here. I think this is fine, third pot, and he just goes ahead and folds. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this part. I hope you have enjoyed it. Obviously, if you have any comments or questions, you can send them through to support@mttpokerschool.com, or you can leave them in the Facebook group. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and feedback. And until next time, this has been Gareth James for MTTPokerschool.com signing off. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for checking out this video. If you would like free strategy articles and YouTube videos and free podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox, then head over to MTTPokerschool.com right now and sign up for our mailing list. I'll even throw in a free push fold guide and opening hand cheat sheet. What are you waiting for? Head to MTTPokerschool.com right now.